number 0722, Councilor Coletta offered the following. Order for a hearing regarding a comprehensive district-wide planning process for Boston's waterfront.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilor Coletta. Councilor Coletta, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President Flynn. Today, I rise proudly for the first time with excitement, optimism, and endless love for the city and its people. I am hopeful for the future we can and will create for future generations with creativity and innovation. And while I'm incredibly excited for the future of this city, I am keenly aware of the unique challenges ahead. And as we look directly into the face of what is a local threat to us and millions around the world, sea level rise due to climate change, I am worried about our future. The progress we've built, both in our physical infrastructure as well as in our human infrastructure, through the dismantling of oppressive systems and structures, will all be for naught if we do not plan proactively to protect the resiliency of our coastline and of our people. And so today, in thinking of our collective future, I rise with urgency. And I rise with the intention to expedite the conversation in implementing a comprehensive district-wide planning process for Boston's waterfront. Boston is extremely lucky to have a natural and environmental treasure that is our harbor. Many forget that Boston has a rich historic maritime history, even before the settlement of European colonizers on indigenous Massachusetts land. As Boston grew, so did its shipping ports and piers, and with that, the waterfront became a necessary economic engine during the industrial era. And over the years, as the city expanded, contracted, and expanded again, our waterfront has remained an industrial hub while also enjoying welcomed investments into beautiful parks and open spaces on the water's edge. I think of places that I frequented as a child with my abuela, like parks including Pierce Park or Park Azul as it's known in the Latinx community, and the iconic La Presti Park with sweeping views of Boston's skyline. We all have the right to access and enjoy Boston's tidelands protected by the Public Waterfront Act, otherwise known as Chapter 91. But despite these protections, and much like any jewel, our beloved waterfront is under intense pressure, both due to coastal flooding and private interests that seek to commodify its beauty. District 1 in particular faces pressures as East Boston, Charlestown, and the North End are all coastal communities that for generations have bared significant burdens and environmental injustices. We face being hit first and worst by negative impacts of climate change in the coming years, and the data is out there and it's unsettling. The Gulf of Maine, including its smaller cousin, Massachusetts Bay, is the fastest warming body of ocean on the planet. Boston faces the greatest risk of flooding with more than 45% of our critical infrastructure at risk, and this includes our hospitals, schools, police, and fire stations. And it is expected to increase by 20% by 2051. And as we prepare for sea level rise, we must prioritize waterfront planning that dictates any new development while incorporating a strong plan for resiliency, equity, and accessibility. And right now, in this very moment, we are dealing with a compounding displacement crisis, both due to development and gentrification. And then looking to the very near future, about 11,000 people, a majority of them low income and people of color, will soon be displaced due to coastal flooding. And the city has a significant role to play in planning for our future to fortify our coastline and mitigate the effects of storm surges and stormwater runoff, which is a whole nother topic that we'll get to at a later date. But yes, we can achieve this without depending on investments from private entities or developers whose goal it is to maximize their financial return under the guise of resiliency if it does so please the bureaucrats that it ultimately needs approval from. I rise today to strongly say, taking a parcel by parcel approach to fortifying our coastline has not and will not adequately address the urgent need of coastal flooding, nor does it consider the need for a holistic plan to solve our housing crisis. I am pleased to see the recent announcement by Mayor Michelle Wu to launch an MHP for East Boston that prioritizes waterfront resiliency and equity, and I do look forward to partnering with her administration on this work. But while we consider next steps for this process, there are significant lessons to be learned from the downtown waterfront MHP that occurred between 2013 and 2017 in both the plan itself and community engagement. First, we must be able to meet the sea to take in water by using both passive and active permeable landscapes. Let's utilize contemporary resiliency strategies seen around the world as applied in cities in Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and in Venice. I know Boston is a competitive city, so I hope when I say that we are behind the pack on this, it will dawn on people that we are behind and that we seriously need to act urgently. Collaboration is key with academic partners like the UMass Boston Stone Living Lab, which is already analyzing the merits of large engineering solutions to sea level rise with social justice at the center of decision making. And then whatever happens through this process, it needs to be community-led. We need to have an emphasis on centering the needs of residents for what their vision is for their waterfront. And my last point on this is that we must plan for the inclusion of all Bostonians to enjoy the waterfront, regardless of race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. We should ensure that there are wayfinding signs, this is easy, available in multiple languages, and we should work with the Coalition for a Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront and waterfront-dependent institutions like the New England Aquarium to assist us with affordable programming. I'd also like to see living shorelines that act as classrooms for BPS and even community-based organizations like the Harbor Keepers and Green Roots. And there is an economic argument to this as well. I've seen reports that state that for every dollar spent today on waterfront planning, fortifying our coastlines, we will save $4 per square foot of buildings impacted by coastal flooding. So, as there are parallel planning processes taking place in my district and increased discussions around lifting certain waterfront properties under the designated port area, we need a plan that takes into consideration modern resilience strategies through an equity lens that sets out our vision to guide any new proposals. We simply cannot perpetuate a piecemeal approach any longer and hope we are protected in the coming years. I'll close just by saying that as a young girl, I often dreamed about accessing the entirety of East Boston's waterfront. I would walk along with my family along the water's edge, and I used to try to jump high enough or get on the shoulders of my father to get a full glimpse of the skyline. I only ever knew the green fencing erected by Massport to keep people off of their property and away from the water. In hindsight, of course, now I realize that I was trying to overcome literal and metaphorical barriers to access the many missed opportunities or memories the water could have provided for me. And while we've made considerable progress and opened up a large part of the Harbor Walk due to luxury developments, there are significant lessons to be learned and missed opportunities. I never could have imagined that today I'd walk the same sidewalks as a child, only to feel like what was built under the guise of resiliency was out of reach financially for me and for the people that I love. Or that 5 years later, we'd still have trouble accessing protections allotted to us under Chapter 91. I want to give a shout out to Magdalena Ayed of the Harbor Keepers, who is making sure that the one bathroom we got in negotiations is still accessible to the public. It's time for that holistic and comprehensive approach. The urgency of climate change and private commodification requires us to be bold and to act now. But I am hopeful that we will rise to the occasion and we will take this challenge head on. Let's dream of a waterfront together. For us, those we know in our lifetime, and those that will inherit the dangerous realities of climate change in their lifetimes. And so today, I rise with urgency and with a call to action for us to meet this moment and get it right. Thank you all so much.